Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Darylyn and today we're gonna do something really fun. I have gotten to the point now where a lot of you are giving me feedback that's really nice, saying that you love it when I roast things, you love it when I cancel things, and I don't really want to run the risk of becoming known for like never having anything nice to say. So today we're gonna do something that I hope will, I don't know, show the softer side, I suppose. But we're gonna go over the top 5 most chill philodendron that I have had the experience growing. These are great plants for beginners, but also they're great plants for somebody who maybe has a more established collection, who just wants something that's gonna be like close to set it and forget it, that they're just gonna mostly get enjoyment out of. Like the enjoyment to effort ratio is like really good for these 5 plants. So let's go ahead and just jump into it because I'm really excited to share these. I'm really proud of these plants. All of them except one that I need to fix, but that's okay. So I'm excited. Let me show you the first one on my list. Alrighty, so first up we have the Philodendron Florida Ghost. Honestly, this plant was a little tricky to root. I've talked about that in the past, where when I got this plant originally, it was a tiny 1-leaf cutting, and I did have a little bit of a difficult time rooting it, but I got some rooting hormone and was able to turn it around, and now look at this. Look at this. She's super happy. So I have this plant in LECA, and once I got it rooted, even though that was a little tiny bit tricky, but totally fine. Like once you know the tricks of the trade, the rooting hormone took care of it and it rooted up real good. Once I got it rooted up, it's just been the easiest, chillest, most show-stoppingly appreciative plant ever. Honestly, like this is definitely one of my best looking philodendrons right now. And yeah, I really can't say anything but good things about it. It is just giving nothing but love back for pretty minimal effort. So I would say that the top things that I love about this plant are that it has given me really big leaves, like pretty quickly. As you can see, it's not grown like super tall. It's done absolutely fabulously in mid-level humidity. That's growing ambient in my house. Usually stays between 55 and 65, which I know is really high for just ambient household humidity, but it's a pretty doable amount of humidity if you have like a plant room or you're able to run a humidifier. I just think it's so beautiful. The leaves are a really unique, interesting shape, and it basically does nothing except chill, and it never complains. I honestly, like, I have this one in LECA. What I will say about these is that they definitely really love water. So if you're not comfortable keeping it in LECA or pond or whatever, which fair enough, because hydroponics can be a lot of work, especially once your plants start getting to be quite large, but they do just love water. So, make sure that you don't let them go too long without being watered. But yeah, I really like this. I think that this plant is definitely a lot less finicky and a lot easier going than the Florida Beauty, which I have my example of right there. The other thing too that's cool about the Florida Ghost is that, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but on the stem of the plant, there's lots of aerial roots that are coming out, and they're still staying pretty healthy in my ambient humidity. They're not drying up, which is great because I do eventually want to repot this and put this on a pole. And when I say eventually, like really, I need to do that soon, because I think that once this plant gets rooted into a pole, it's just gonna take off even more so than it already has. And then the other thing about this plant is that it is one of my few philodendrons that really tolerates like some direct evening sun without burning. And it is called the Philodendron Florida for a reason, probably. So I can't recommend this enough. I think it's a super fun one. And if you want something that's like relatively low maintenance, like pretty tolerant of, a minimal amount of attention and care, Philodendron Florida Ghost, man, great selection. The one thing that I would say is that, the whole like the color changing thing, like you can see this leaf down here is like really white. And then we've been having really cloudy weather this spring, so the bigger leaves are not super white on this plant. I think it's cool, but I don't even really think that it's like an essential part of having the plant for it to do that successfully, consistently. I've found that the leaves like whatever color they kind of come in as, they don't really fade down too much. So if your plant is getting like tons and tons of sun, it's probably gonna stay looking pretty white or minty. But yeah, I just really enjoy this plant. I can't wait until it's, you know, grows up this pole. It grows like, I wouldn't say it's a super fast grower, but it does grow pretty consistently. And for water, I do give all of my aeroids like a pretty, you know, complex fertilizer nutrient water potion that includes like being pH balanced. But I do think that a lot of the philodendrons on this list can tolerate, you know, tap water every now and again if you have to water your plants with tap water. So I think this is great. If you want something interesting, you want something kind of show-stopping, you want something that you can put in a window, you don't have to worry about it burning. And, you know, if you're confident enough that you can water it enough, like this is a banger. 100% love this plant. And it's so funny because I didn't even set out to acquire this plant on purpose. It was just like a bonus cutting when I bought like a bunch of stuff from somebody that I know in a local group. So, I mean, to see this go from like a tiny little itty bitty cutting, one leafer, to this stunning mama has been really fun. So I highly recommend the Philodendron Florida Ghost. All right, so next on the list, and you guys are gonna see how tough this plant is because I have literally neglected it and done like a bunch of things wrong with it recently, and it is still cooking, it's still trucking, and it does not care. And that is my Philodendron Bilitis. All right, so as you can see, this monstrosity is in straight up a vase of, I'm like 99% sure that this is just tap water. Tap water. This thing is growing in tap water. And so, man, she's looking good. She looks really good on camera, you guys. Wow. Look at that. This leaf's actually like kind of getting big. Oh wait, no, this one's actually the biggest leaf. This leaf right here is the biggest leaf. Look at that. She's looking good. Okay, so the story with this is that it had been in leca for a really long time. I also got this as like a 2-leaf cutting, and I also needed to use rooting hormone to get this plant to root. But once it started getting going, it just grew like crazy, which is great. And these actually can tolerate like a little bit lower light. Like they do not need direct sunlight. They'll be totally fine to just like chill under a grow light. If you have like a really bright room, they'll be fine to just chill in the bright room. They don't need to be blasted with light, which is nice, you know, makes it a little bit easier on us sometimes. But this plant grew and grew and grew, and it was in like a small thing of leca. And then eventually I left it so long, and it was such a robust grower that all of the roots in the middle of the leca like grew so much that they suffocated each other and then started to rot. And so I had to take it out of that situation and like rehab it. But honestly, you guys, it didn't really even care. It lost like 1 leaf, like an old one. And then I just stuck it in water, and like it's gonna need to be put into something huge, and it's gonna need a pole. Look, I've got all these beautiful aerial roots. It's ready, it's ready. Like when I get around to repotting it, honestly, like I should do that like immediately. I should do this, and I should do the Florida Ghost immediately. It's gonna just take off, and I'm so excited. But yeah, Philodendron Bilitis is an absolutely great choice if you want something low maintenance, if you want something chill. I have never kept this plant in an aeroid mix, but I have a feeling that it would do really well. Looks stunning. There's not that many philodendrons that like really look like a Philodendron Bilitis. So it's a fun one. Like I think it is a cool plant that'll stand out in any collection. And I think that, you know, it just goes to show like it's literally been in a vase of tap water for, I don't know, probably 6 months at this point. Cause I think that was December when I realized that I had screwed it up, and it is now June. So can't really say anything, you know, more about this plant. It is so good. And I find that these billies, like, especially if you keep them well hydrated, they really do not have issues with like yellowing leaves. They don't have issues with spider mites. Like this plant, I've had thrips a few times in my collection since I got this plant. It never really showed any signs of being distressed by the presence of the thrips. I think that they're like pretty hardy plants. Like their leaves kind of feel like almost succulent in a way. And I've seen the one in the botanical garden down here by my house in San Diego. That thing is huge. Like those leaves are the sizes of like battle shields. So you can grow this plant like, you know, the sky's kind of the limit with these. So I highly recommend This, if you can get an established one, go for it. But if you are going to get an unrooted cutting, definitely suggest to propagate it using a little rooting hormone in some water. And yeah, she's chilling. She's chilling. I love it. All right, let me show you what I have next. All right, so next up is the Philodendron Splendid. And I do own this plant, but it is in my bedroom and it's kind of in a state where I don't want to move it because it has kind of grown off of its pole and like around the back and it's really long. And I need to chop and prop it and like fix it up. But so I'll just show you a picture of someone else's so you guys can see. But Philodendron Splendids are absolutely wonderful plants. They're great plants for beginners. They are so hardy. And I think that they are probably one of the most beautiful philodendrons out there. They give you all of the like the varicosum like showiness, but they're super hardy. They're very drought tolerant, which is great if you're a beginner. And they will grow pretty well without a pole, but I definitely would suggest a pole for like optimal growing results. Mine have always flourished just fine in my ambient humidity environment. They can tolerate a little bit lower light. Mine have always been under like kind of cheap grow lights that like don't really give that much light off, and they do great. They're beautiful. I love their beautiful like blue undertones. I just like can't say enough about it. I'm really looking forward to getting the time to like fix mine because I just let it go like way too long, you guys. Like I only have so much time, and sometimes like if a plant, even if it's like growing weirdly, but if it's okay, like I will just leave it because I don't have time or energy sometimes to deal with things when I need to deal with them. But highly recommend. It is a hybrid of the varicosum and the melanochrysum, which you would think like both parent plants are kind of notorious for being a little finicky. No, it got like all of the good characteristics and none of the finickiness, which is just fantastic. I think that there was a time when I would have probably ranked the Philodendron Splendid as like my #1 favorite philodendron must have. I think that there's another one that has probably eclipsed that one, but for the heart-shaped ones especially, but I do love them. I've found that they've been pretty resistant to spider mites. They've been pretty resistant to thrips. They clearly like show signs that the thrips are there, but they, you know, they're robust and they pull through. I've never had an issue with them freaking out if they didn't get, you know, their ideal water situation for a while. They're pretty tolerant to tap water. And yeah, they're just easygoing plants. You get them on a pole and they give you nothing but love. So if you're thinking about trying to get a heart-shaped philodendron that's velvety to grow up a pole and you're not sure like which ones to consider, I definitely would put the Splendid on your list because those they give nothing but love. Such good plants. All right, so next we have the only variegated plant on this list. Probably for obvious reasons, because variegated plants tend to be a little bit more finicky than some of the others. But this is my Philodendron Bono, and I literally cannot say enough nice things about this plant. This plant has tolerated being grown in this tiny cup for going on a year, over a year now. I need to repot this plant desperately, like immediately. Maybe I'll do that this weekend. I have a 4-day weekend. I love these so much. This one is not looking as spectacular as they normally do because she's just sitting on a shelf by the window, and I had been relying on that window to get a lot of light to all the plants around in this area. And we have had the absolute most horrendously cloudy, gloomy, gray spring this year. I was reading an article, it's the worst we've had in like 25 years. So a lot of the plants, yeah, they've definitely been showing that they're not getting enough light, and this is one of them. So normally when the new leaves come out, there's like the variegated patches are like bright white. On this new leaf, you can see this just unfurled like 2 days ago. The speckles are already pretty green, and that is because of the light situation. But this plant, basically all of the nice things that I've said about all of the other plants, same goes for this one. It is just very tolerant of being underwatered. It's very tolerant of not having been repotted. I can't believe it, but Like, it's doing really well. It's tolerant of low light. As you can see, the plant's just, you know, vibing. It's tolerant of much more light. And it's also tolerant of me not being organized enough and motivated enough to put it on a pole, even though it so desperately is ready. Highly, highly, highly recommend. I feel like for ease of care to show-stoppingness ratio purposes, I would say the Jose Bono is definitely one of the best. This plant is so awesome. It definitely is giving like Ilsamanii vibes sometimes with like the speckling. And yeah, I can't say enough nice things about it. Like, it'll tolerate if you have to give it tap water occasionally. Like, it's just chilling. And I honestly like can't wait to see what happens with it once I do finally get it on a pole, because man, I just am so pleased with this. I'm really disappointed that it is so green looking right now, because in past videos when I've shown it, it looked really, really like show-stopping because it had been getting better light, but you can see on the leaves like where they would have been lighter when they had first unfurled. But I honestly, with this plant, like, I don't mind that the variegation fades down to green, because that means that you never have to worry about the plant like offing itself going full variegated, because the leaves are gonna fade down and be green again anyway. Like, look at this leaf down here. This leaf was like pure white almost when it came out. It's green, it's fine, it's hanging in there. So I think as far as variegated plants go, this is very beginner friendly, very chill. You still get the like balance of the beautiful show-stopping leaves, but it's very forgiving because they eventually all turn green. This plant survived a thrips infestation and looks completely amazing. Like, you would never know that this plant survived a thrips infestation. I've had absolutely zero issues with this plant getting spider mites. And that is actually saying a lot, because this was next to a cursed Philodendron Dean McDowell for a long time that chronically had spider mites, and this plant didn't care, never blinked. So this one, this is just so great. This is so good. Like, I love this. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. I really can't like say anything but nice things about it. All right, so before we get to number one, I do have a couple honorable mentions. These are plants that, like, even though they're really, I do think they are pretty easygoing. Like, I don't know if I'd recommend them to a beginner, but I have two that come to mind. The first is the Philodendron Gloriosum, but I do really love the Philodendron Gloriosum. I've had nothing but good experiences with it. The reason that I have it as an honorable mention and not really formally on the list is that, like, crawlers can sometimes be a little bit weird. And I also kind of had a journey trying to figure out like what kind of substrate it wanted. They're great if you're willing to kind of like do some trial and error and then kind of mess with it and persevere. But I do think that I've heard a lot of like beginners kind of just not really loving the experience there. So honorable mention, maybe that's like more of like an intermediate plant than top 5 chillest philodendrons. And then the other one is the Philodendron Majestic. I think this plant is really beautiful and I have grown it in the past. I don't have it anymore. Long story short, it loses its silver as it matures, and I just kind of like have too many things and I had to make some cuts, and so that was one of the things that I got rid of. But if you let these climb and you know, take care of them, like they'll give you nothing but love. I'd say they're a little bit trickier than something like a Splendid. They don't love to run out of water. When I had thrips, they like ripped through this plant. So I don't think I think honorable mention is a good spot for them. Maybe like a beginner plus is a good spot for the Philodendron Majestic, but I would say that that's another good one to look into if you're trying to find something that'll, you know, kind of be the next big philodendron in your collection to like grow up a pole. But yeah, so now we are coming to number 1, and let me show you what I got for you. All right, let me get her in frame. So number 1 on this list is the Philodendron Glorious. This plant is in the kind of like set dressing of a lot of my videos. I absolutely love this plant. It is, right now, it's looking a little bit worse for wear. We had an incident. I had to repot her and cut her, and it was a whole thing, lost a lot of leaves, but she has bounced back. There's actually 2 of them in this pot now, and you can see down here, There's some little leaves on the butt cut that are starting to activate. So give me a couple of months probably, and this is gonna look like a completely different plant because there'll be more foliage down here and then we'll get some more leaves up top. But the Philodendron Glorious, I honestly would have to say, is the absolute easiest philodendron to size up that I have ever grown. Like if you dream of big, giant, pillowy, heart-shaped, velvety leaves and you're a beginner, I think of all of the ones I've grown, and I've grown most of them, the Glorious is the easiest, most just generous, easygoing plant. They are so beautiful and just so tolerant. Yeah, this one actually came from NSC Tropicals. I think I got it like 2 years ago, and it just, if I had immediately potted it up and given it a pole and everything when I got it, it would have just kind of exploded like a stack of green pillows immediately. Of course, I'm not on top of anything, so that didn't happen, but I really love these. Every single nice thing that I've said about every single other plant on this list applies to this plant. It's tolerant of overwatering, it's tolerant of underwatering, it's tolerant of poorly planned propagation attempts. It is tolerant of not being put on a pole. Once you give it a pole, it does nothing but bless you. It's just, it tolerates a little bit higher light. It tolerates a little bit lower light. It tolerates tap water. It thanks you for pH balanced, nutrient enriched water. It can grow in many, many different media. I have it in my soilless philodendron / aeroid mix. That's like mostly bark and leca, chunky perlite, sphagnum moss, tree fern. Yeah, I mean, it looks so good. Like, let me show you the back of the moss pole. We've got, look at all those roots coming in. It's really dug into this pole. So this plant is gonna be looking so good here in a couple of months. And then like, you can see, we've got this big old caterpillar right here, and there's a new leaf that's gonna start coming out pretty soon. So I love this plant. They're really, really good prices right now. So if you're looking for something that you want to be like a statement piece, showstopper, and you're willing to do the work to get it there. So that means, you know, putting it on a pole, maybe a little trial in there with your substrate, the committing to the high quality pH balanced water, committing to, you know, monitoring it to make sure you're not underwatering it. This plant is gonna do nothing but thank you for it. Like, so good. And the other thing too is that these honestly almost grow too well. So you get to the point where it might almost be too big. The reason I had to propagate this plant and I didn't have time to plan out how I was gonna do it is because it had gotten so big and top heavy that it was like falling over in this pot, and I had to do something or it was literally gonna fall and like break itself. I think in one of my recent videos, it might have been the Planty Glow Ups video, I'm literally talking about something else and it's like, it just like is falling over and I have to like stop and fix it. But yeah, I just adore this plant. Philodendron Glorious, like, for sure. If anything ever happened to my collection and I had to start over, all of these plants that I've mentioned today, that are the actual 5, that are the top 5 chillest philodendrons, are things I would rebuy 100%. The Glorious is the first thing I would rebuy, and I would do everything I could to get another one from NSC Tropicals because this plant is just so perfect, and I can't say enough good things about it. So, I mean, I could just stand here and ramble on about this for the rest of the day, but I don't think, you know, anyone wants to stick around for that. So we're gonna wrap it up. But yeah, I do love this plant a lot, and I highly, highly recommend it to a beginner, to a more seasoned person who just wants something that's gonna be a lot of joy to grow because it's just gonna go well pretty much. So that's that. And then I guess since we're here and she's in frame, this is my Philodendron El Chaco Red. This plant is not on this list. I love this plant, but it's not on this list. So just be aware of that. If you are trying to maybe get a Chaco, like they're not easy, like it's effort for these. Anyway, that is going to be it for me for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.